This is VH2AM, the voice of NRMA Road Service. Here's David Brown.
And welcome to the fourth edition of VH2AM and the first show for 1995. Well, it's been quite a summer. I hope your holidays went well if you were lucky enough to get a break. You know, although we didn't have the bushfires of last year, we sure had some hot weather over the holidays. Do you remember that hot, stinking day just before Christmas? Seemed like the roads were melting. Come to think of it, the roads probably were melting. Well, on the 21st of December, the temperature in Sydney soared past 42 degrees. And how many road patrol jobs did we do? 7,937. That's right, almost 8,000 jobs. Now, by my little calculator, that's better than 1 every 12 seconds. And that's not including tows. A fantastic effort. And on behalf of your colleagues in the NRMA, thank you and well done. Okay, let's get VH2AM for 1995 underway. Do you remember the feeling of waiting for the announcement of who was going to win the rights to hold the 2000 Olympic Games? We knew Australia had the best proposal, but of course that's not enough. You have to make sure that you've got the message out in every convincing way possible. It's the same with the NRMA. We know we have the best road service in the world, but we still have to manage the way we present our image, to manage our name and reputation to the outside world. Well, the person who masterminded our Olympic bid, Rod McGeoch, is also going to help the NRMA do exactly that. So let's have a chat. Hello, Rod.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm good. Very well. Look, I've caught you in the midst of a tour around the organisation. Thanks for your time. The NRMA's always been involved in helping people travel. That must be a major part of planning for the Olympic bid as well.
Well, the whole transport strategy for an Olympic Games is a major matter, not only in the winning of the Games, because fundamentally you can't win unless the city's got the capacity to put the Games on, and that means moving anything up to 500,000 spectators a day, to 25 odd venues. I mean, one way to look at the Olympic Games is this, that we are going to put on 27 World Championships in Sydney simultaneously. Yeah. And that is a very real issue about moving spectators. So, yes, we had to look very closely at the capacity of our road, rail and ferry services, because it will be a largely public transport dominated strategy. Yes. Obviously a lot of Sydney-siders will drive to the point of departure on public transport, and also they'll drive to satellite parking areas around Olympic Park and then be brought in by public transport. So, the NRMA will always have a role in that. It did have a role on the Transport Committee that right. worked out the strategy for the bid. And look, I'm sure those guys out there on the road know better than anybody that we really do have a magnificent transport system in Sydney. And, you hear the knockers from time to time about traffic congestion and slow trains and buses and this sort of thing. Go to any other city in the world. I mean, no other city came anywhere near Sydney in terms of its whole transport system.
Is that right?
No, none. I mean, we were twice as good as Beijing, Manchester, Berlin, a lot of them. And we're talking about a city that's, Sydney's been in its developed form going for a couple of 100 years, and we beat all those cities that have been going for 1,000 years.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, no problem at all.
We've always had in the NRMA, we've had up to recently, guides around the place. I think you've got some stories about how difficult it can be sometimes to transport.
Well, there are some funny stories about the whole business of transport in the Games. I mean, it is true that we had 170 official visits into the city, and they all had to be driven around and shown the sporting venues and the hospitals and the hotels and all that sort of thing.
Were you ever afraid they were going to get caught up in traffic?
No, never at all, David, because we arranged with the police to always turn the traffic lights green. And the traffic lights went green at every intersection as we approached them. And I mean, all of us in Sydney, I think, know Oxford Street, going up Oxford Street, the football stadium. I used to swing into Oxford Street with the visitors, and there just wasn't a soul. There were green lights, and these visitors would say to me, "You've got 4 million people in this city and you don't seem to have any traffic." I said, "That's the way it is now, and that's the way it'll be for the Games." And that's how it was. And you talk about guides, it's really a broader topic than guides. When any city puts on the Olympic Games now, there are about 50,000 people used as volunteers. they get a couple of uniforms and they get the right to go and watch events. And in exchange for that, they donate their services. And one of the most important is as a volunteer driver. And we will require hundreds of drivers to drive the vehicles that are provided by the sponsor and drive a lot of the officials around from the villages to the venues and back again and so on. Now, all of those people need to be locality trained, and they need to be very responsible people behind the wheel of a car. And if you go, I remember at the Winter Olympics in Albertville in 1992, Nick and Catherine Greiner got lost for an hour and 20 minutes because their driver just had no idea where he was driving around. In Barcelona, we had buses that were taking the Australian Olympic team that got lost for an hour. One ended up in France. I'm sure we can do all that better. But, what happens, of course, is that people volunteer to drive in the city and they don't come from there.
All right.
There's no doubt we'll get people from Perth and Brisbane, and they'll all say, we want to drive, we're happy to volunteer. You stick them in Sydney with a map and a car and tell them to get to Homebush. And we'd like to do that better if we can.
Yes, I think we have a few taxi drivers like that. So tell us about your new job with the NRMA.
Well, the title of the job is as a Director of Special Corporate Projects, if you like. But look, what it's about to people down at the grassroots of the NRMA, and that's from the guys out there on the road through elsewhere. I'm really here to try and help the NRMA right through its broad-based communication and marketing function, out to its membership, out to all of that wonderful staff that are here. I think that the communications department of the NRMA felt that I could help them in sending the great messages of the NRMA out widely, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Now, in addition to that general role of spokesman, there are some strategic issues that I think they feel I can make a contribution in. I mean, being involved in winning an Olympic Games bid in itself was a major strategic task. You've got primary audiences and secondary audiences, and you're trying to get messages at them. And in addition to that, you're trying to beat a lot of competition. And I've been asked to help on some of the strategic planning. But I want everybody that's listening to know that I'm here for the whole of the NRMA. I'm, as it were, really a part-time staff member. I'm down here at the grassroots in the communications department saying, well, look, this is what I do, and if you'd like me to help you with that announcement, I'll help you. So I'm not for anybody or against anybody. I'm just for the whole of the NRMA and its members.
Yeah, an example of one of those campaigns you're pushing was the road safety campaign at Christmas, and you obviously spoke on behalf of us with a link to being a good host.
Yes, well, I thought that that was a good place for me to start because, the NRMA, look, you are a vital community institution today. I mean, yes, you are this association of members and policyholders, but the NRMA in its 75-year history has done an extraordinary job of making itself a critical part of the matrix of Sydney. And see, very few private organisations have been able to do that. The NRMA has done that magnificently, and I thought the right way for me to start, and so did your marketing and communications people, was to get me involved in some community activity announcements to start with. Not have me up there saying the NRMA's travel agency is better than somebody else's, but rather to...
A traditional area.
The question of road toll and being careful and not drinking and driving are things that... Now, look, the NRMA was always going to have a Christmas message anyway. It was just a great opportunity to put me into it, to get me started.
Well, thanks, Ron. That was great. Perhaps we could continue this in the next VH2AM, and we'll cover some of what you're going to do for the NRMA.
Great pleasure, David.
This is VH2AM, and it's time to look at a safety aid dreamed up by a few of our patrols. David.
Yes, of course, it's not surprising that most innovative ideas for improvement in equipment and service come from the guys who spend most of the time out on the road helping members. The latest idea in this field is the safety support rod, and it's the baby of some of the guys in Northern Zone. Joining us today on VH2AM is Ted Snurling from Northern. Ted, welcome, and what is this safety rod and what does it do?
Well, David, the safety support rod is a new idea that's just come onto into the field, and it is a short, if you can picture a short tent pole, a collapsible tent pole, roughly a metre in length, and it should be used whenever the bonnet rod or the gas struts are weak on a car, to save the bonnet coming down and hitting your head or your hands. It's a safety device, part of your standard equipment in the safety.
So, Ted, it's a rod that replaces a faulty bonnet rod, or it fills in if one isn't there?
Yes, David. You can use it if the bonnet support rod is missing, which sometimes you find out in the field. But I think you'd probably use it more often when the gas struts are weak and it won't support the weight of the bonnet. For example, VWs, they've got large spoilers on the back of the boot lid. You can use the bonnet support rod there, or on the Falcons, for example. A lot of those have weak gas struts, and this will help you to hold open the bonnet. And
how did it come into being?
Well, it came about when during one of our communication meetings, one of my patrols, Michael Agnew, came up with the idea after a bonnet had come down on top of his head, and he saw the need for a tool that would assist him in the field. Up until that time, I think we've all been using a short broomstick or a jack handle or something to prop open the bonnet, and he took the idea to a friend of his and had the tool made up, and he brought it along to the comms meeting and showed it to me, and I embraced the idea and decided that we all needed one. Put it into a package and presented it to the management, and they welcomed the idea and saw it as a need that everybody should have one of these tools. Together with the safety committee was also involved and looked at the idea and also gave it the okay.
And are there many instances of patrols being donged by falling bonnets?
Yes, I think if you talk to the more patrols you talk to, they can all tell you a story where a bonnet has come down while they're on their head or their hands while they've been working on it, or had difficulty in trying to hold the bonnet open while they're trying to work on it, either in windy conditions or expressways, etc.
Right. Well, when can the patrols expect to see the safety rod?
It's in the pipeline. It should be out very, very shortly, and all patrols should get one.
It's not the sort of thing, not even for me, where you would need an instruction book, is it?
The instructions, although you don't really need instructions, it's fairly straightforward, but we'll give you a few ideas as to how to use it.
Sounds great, Ted. Thanks very much.
That's a pleasure. Thank you.
At VH2AM, we appreciate the inputs from patrols. If there is something you would like to hear on the show, jot it down on the cardboard slip inside the cassette holder and get it to us. We appreciate the feedback.
Well, the NRMA has now reached its 75th year in 1995, and it is compiling together information on its history. Now, they've even gone to a great effort of opening a museum, which you've probably heard of, which is down in Clarence Street, just at the top of Barracks. The person who's been mainly responsible for getting this up and running and produce a wonderful calendar that I want to talk about now is Pat Yeomans, who joins me. Hi, Pat.
Good morning, David.
Now, tell me, getting these photographs together, you've got in front of you there this wonderful calendar, beautiful quality, the front picture, a road patrol. It's a lovely old car,
yes, isn't it wonderful? It's a very engaging photo.
Describe it to me. What sort of car is it?
Well, it's a Chrysler 75. Our boys down the technical department were able to identify, because I have to tell you, I'm not good at that sort of thing. But a Chrysler 75, circa 1926, and we say of the photograph, a museum vocabulary, a creator unknown. Sadly, we know nothing more about the photograph other than that, but it seemed that everyone who looked at it liked it. Male, female, young and old. It's got a chitty bang quality,
well,
really,
it's a
hasn't
big,
it?
tall, lumbering almost, or very, very solid looking vehicle, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course NRMA Road Patrol.
And sparkling clean too, nice and bright and shiny, and covered with NRMA badges and logos all over it, and even a handmade one on the front bumper bar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely, isn't it? Because, well, dirty tyres, which you expect from the roads, but yes, kept the car very clean, or the van very... It's a utility.
Yes.
Raring to go. There's some lovely photos in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it must have been fun putting them together.
It was indeed. And also, it was a very nostalgic time and a rather moving time. It was amazing talking with some of the old patrols who are retired now, and the wonderful stories they had to tell us. A couple of them go back into generational things, that their uncle or their father before them had been a patrol. And as a result of a couple of mentions in the Gold Members newsletter and Open Road, an amazing response from Gold members and from early members with donations of either objects, small objects, and or photographs, which we're very grateful to receive, and we're very moved by some of the stories. Indeed we were.
Yeah, you say that, and to me the one is at March, April, pictures of the young school children and the Road Safety Patrol.
Oh, yes. Well, road safety, it's very interesting. The things that we take for granted today, it wasn't until 1937 with the amendment to the Traffic Act that things started to settle down just a little bit. But back in the very late 20s, it was a great worry. The statistics of accidents and deaths to children particularly just went through the roof. 1929, C.A. Gregory, who was our touring and publicity manager at the time, was
famous later for street directories.
Yes, indeed. And the strip map, too. A lot of people remember the strip map, or the Road Before You map, as it was called then. Well, C.A. Gregory started Safety Week in 1929 because of the alarming statistics. 58 kids were killed and 1,085 were injured in that year.
In 1929?
In 1929. And when you put that up against the population figures of that day, I mean, at any time, one child being killed is a sad, a dreadful thing to happen to any family, but just imagine those figures in those days. Couple that with the fact that it was during the Great Depression, it was the peak of the Great Depression. You don't have to have much imagination to know that the children that were being hurt or injured were not on quiet suburban streets, but mostly would have been in the inner city areas. A little bit more stretch of the imagination in the inner city areas. Again, you can assume that Dad was probably an unskilled labourer and one of the first to lose his job, so he might have even been away from the family looking for work. And so and it was at a time again without medical benefits. So when these accidents happened, even if they were just a small nudge, it was a very serious thing and brought great grief to the family.
So what did the NRMA do?
Well, the NRMA started Safety Week, as I said, in 1929, and also lobbied extensively through and to the police department, whereby the police then formed a squad that went into the schools teaching children safety procedures in crossing the road. Now, they started little safety patrols, and in the museum, and we show in the calendar, the safety patrols, photographs of the safety patrols. In the museum, we have actually some of the armbands and the pennants that they used, but the older kids used to take the little ones across the road and say, "Now, this is what you do." I would imagine they might have been a bit officious occasionally, as older kids are likely to be with little kids, but nonetheless, they sort of looked after themselves.
Right.
Of course, today we've got traffic lights, we have all sorts of things,
But the thing I love there is that photo of the kids with the little flags in their hand.
Yes.
And of course it shows very much what the Depression was like.
Oh,
for the
one
children.
with the boy without the shoes and socks. Yes, we say a grim reminder of how serious it was.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a photograph down in the museum. That's just a piece of a photograph, a little vignette. But in the museum, we have the photograph of these boys from Alexandra Public School. I think it was 1933. 32, in around there, the early 30s, without shoes and socks. And I often wonder where those boys are, the men of today, if they're still with us, or indeed if one of them's perhaps looking at his photograph in the calendar because we didn't have their names, or they might come into the museum one day and identify themselves.
Maybe.
Be very interesting, yes.
So the calendars are out now?
Yes, they are. They're at all the branches. I hope they're at the branches and at most of the service centres. And of course, you can always ring NRMA and just ask for information on them, and we'd be glad to sort of send one out to people.
And still some lovely photos of that one down Balmain Brothers down
yes,
south.
The dry as a bone, in the wet and the mud.
A huge old tow truck with a lovely old car. You've just turned it up
all
there.
in a day's work.
Yeah.
We've called that, yes.
I think that's one of the nice things. It showed the NRMA across areas. You talked about the inner city and road safety, but also out in the country roads as well.
Well, we know from the patrols, it was challenging to them that the tougher the job sometimes, the more they rose to the occasion. Yeah. And they would improvise and use anything that came to hand to get whoever it was in trouble back on the road again. Doing marvellous work, and all with a smile and a sense of humour.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Pat, thank you for your time.
Not at all. My pleasure, David. Thanks for your interest.
Throughout the year on VH2AM, we'll be bringing you news on new automotive products and services, giving the patrols pre-warnings of what they will eventually see on the road. Before the NRMA will discuss a new product with its members, it must, of course, be evaluated by our technical people, including evaluation engineer Mike Seidel, all suntanned from an Indonesian holiday. Nice to be some people. How was the break, Mike?
Not too bad, thanks, Dave, and I hope you enjoyed yours.
Certainly did. Okay, Mike. First off, the Red Alert system. What is it? And what does it do?
The Red Alert is a safety device that's aimed to provide the drivers following advanced warning of your intention to brake. It's basically a piezo sensor attached to the throttle linkage, and as you're aware, if you're intending to brake in a hurry, you'll take your foot off the accelerator really quickly, move across to the brake. When that happens, the throttle hits the stop, sends a little shock signal to the piezo, which activates the rear brake lights and also a warning buzzer in the cabin. Therefore, the person behind will get advanced warning that you're going to put your foot on the brake, and it'll give them an extra few metres of braking distance.
So it's a bit more insurance?
Yes, and hopefully it's going to save our insurance companies some claims in the future.
And it's already up and running in some overseas countries?
Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, and some of the other Nordic countries. Also, I believe, in America. And the RTA over here are currently looking at it.
Mike, some of the other things that technical are evaluating at the moment.
We're having a look at quite a few things. Something at hand is that Nissan have given me a bit of advance warning, although I think they've just released it now. They've got alarm systems in their cars, and they've also taken on board Bosch to provide them an aftermarket car alarm. At the moment, they'll plug straight into the Pulsars and Nissan Patrols. To go with that, the car alarm standard is being reviewed at the moment, and we're hoping to give that out for public comment at, say, June of this year. Following that, we're going to allow the industry about 4 to 5 months to do a bit of research and development to get their product up to scratch. Once I envisage around December this year, we won't accept any product in my brochure, How to Protect Your Car from a Thief, unless it's been tested and certified to the new standard.
What's the result likely to be? Will some fall by the wayside?
I think that will, Dave, actually. There's a few alarm systems out there that are made from inferior material. Most of them are made in Taiwan anyway, but anything that's passed and certified to the Australian standard, the current standard that is, and future, will be made of automotive-grade components. And those components are basically made of better quality and can withstand higher temperatures. So I think that the El Cheapos should disappear.
Which would be a good thing.
And to provide, that'll then be providing much more reliable security systems for their vehicles.
Okay, Mike. Thanks very much. It's Handy Hint time, the point on the program where some of the patrols pass on hints they've picked up around the traps. Some are brand new, some are just good reminders. First off today, it's over to the Central Zone and Wayne Simpson.
G'day, how are you there?
Listen, mate, were you out in that very hot weather on December the 21st?
Yes, it was a scorcher out there, yeah.
So how long a shift did you do?
I just did the 8-hour shift on the day.
It must have been hard working out in those conditions.
Yes, it's quite awkward getting out of the air-conditioned van and getting out into the heat, yeah.
Anyway, you have a handy hint on a Bosch alternator.
Yeah, there seems to be a problem in the voltage regulator on the late model Bosch alternators. The voltage regulator seems to open circuit. The problem can usually be overcome by applying slight pressure to the underside of the voltage regulator.
Give it a bit of a squeeze and that helps it work?
Yeah, usually by wedging a small piece of wood between the regulator and the bearing housing.
So the car just stops without it?
The vehicle runs till the battery's very low, and then it will cut out on the member.
Then they have to go and get it fixed properly?
Yeah, that's correct. That will get them going to a repairer for further repairs.
Wayne, thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
From Central Zone to the West, and Mike Lombardo is standing by with a handy hint in mind. Mike, welcome.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm pretty well, mate. How was your Christmas?
I had a very good Christmas, thank you, although I had to work, but it was a very nice evening to spend with the family.
So your family all got together once you'd finished your shift?
Yes, that was right.
Anyway, Mike, what's the bit of advice you have for us?
I've got an easy method on the lockout for a Toyota Camry or a Holden Apollo in the wide body series. The method is suitable for either the front doors of the sedan or station wagon. The tool required is an L-shaped wire tool with a length of approximately 300 millimetres and a trip arm no longer than 50 millimetres. We slide a plastic wedge between the window and the weather strip, insert a wire tool 50 millimetres forward of the door handle.
Right.
What we do then, we slide the tool down the glass until you come to the very end, and just past the glass you turn the trip arm towards the centre of the vehicle, locate the rod and push a little more firmly to unlock the door.
So is it one of the tools that have already been put together, or is it one with a slight degree of modification?
No, this L-shaped wire tool is suitable for quite a number of vehicles. I was having trouble with the Toyota Camry lockouts, and I approached one of the training officers, and we went through this method on an actual car door with the door trim off, and found it quite easy with the door trim back on without looking at anything. It was quite easy to do.
Right, so that's for both the Toyota and the Apollo, which are basically the same car.
That's right.
Michael, that's wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, David.
You know, talking to patrols out on the road in different NRMA bases and generally all around the place, it's obvious that although we've only done 3 VH2AMs before this one, the handy hints are one of the most popular bits of the segment. I reckon it's because you hear guys talking about situations that you encounter, maybe not every day, but every now and then. Well, let's keep that going. On the line from the Southern Zone is Ray McCarthy. Ray, how's it going?
How are you?
I'm fine, mate. How's the weather down there?
Well, it's not raining. It's pretty overcast, but other than that, it's fine.
That's fine. Now, tell us about your hint.
Well, my hint is how to positively diagnose a faulty HEI ignition module on Commodore, Falcon, that type of thing.
For my education, HEI means?
That's high energy ignition.
Right, now I'm with you. So, tell us.
Right, well, having taken the cover off the module, which is at the base of the distributor, after checking to see that it has got power to the module, a quick check is to wet the tip of one of your fingers with a little bit of spittle and put it across the 2 centre terminals. If the module's working correctly, you'll generate a high-energy spark at your test spark plug.
Risky at all?
No, we're talking about millivolts. There's no danger, not even any feel at all.
So no oomph to the spark?
Oh, there's lots of spark generated, but nothing at the finger end.
Do you need to do that regularly?
Yeah, it's quite a common fault with modern cars now, particularly as they're getting up in mileage.
So if there is a spark, everything is okay, and you have to look elsewhere for the problem?
That's correct, yeah.
Ray, thanks for an interesting handy hint. Well, that's it for another VH2AM, our first for 1995. We'll be with you every second month during the year with news, views, interviews, hints and whatever else you want to hear about. Thanks to Rod McGeoch, Pat Yeomans, Ted Snurling, Mike Seidel and the patrols who gave their time and effort to the show. I'm David Brown. Catch you next time.